And I found a video when this show came out. Of course, the police officer who was investigating it gets a lot of airtime, so he had a lot of interviews. And I posted one of those interviews on the blog. And this is with the guy from the 2006 interview who was interviewing. He was investigating the second time into these crimes, and this kind of talks about him. This is him talking about the situation, his investigation, and the actual events. So let's listen to that interview.
Back in 2006, I was assigned to a task force that was resurrecting the cold case of Notorious B.I.G., Biggie Smalls. And a group of people, including myself, began to look back over what was now a decade of investigative history.
When I was in the police department, crime was the biggest thing with hip-hop, and the police department didn't really understand the correlation between the hip-hop music world and the crime. So that's where I came into play. I'll tell you how the East Coast, West Coast rift started. The problem was, it wasn't the problem between so much Tupac and Biggie, it was between Puffy and Suge Knight.
They don't have respect for the West Coast out here.
Yeah, there was just, friction that had developed between Puffy Combs and Suge Knight, and then their artists began to beef between Biggie and Tupac, and then ultimately the gangs that they associated with out here in Los Angeles, both West Coast gangs, Crips and Bloods, joined the fray. For the Crips out here in Los Angeles, there was a relationship with Puffy Combs, and so when Sean Combs was beginning to have issues with Suge Knight, he brought these Crips around him to kind of create a barrier of protection. Suge Knight, when he was developing his label, and his gang associates just naturally came with him.
More on the life and death last night of rapper Tupac Shakur, the singer who always seemed to be in the middle of trouble.
I'm pretty much the only detective that traveled to Las Vegas and to Los Angeles. Vegas was still in the dark about the hip-hop culture. As a matter of fact, LA was as well, because these guys didn't know anything about hip-hop. The Vegas PD wasn't so cooperative. LAPD had a lot of problems with the corruption. Las Vegas PD guys were very concerned about what information they were going to disseminate to what agencies.
Another gangster rapper gunned down. This time, 24-year-old Notorious B.I.G. killed in an apparent drive-by shooting outside a Los Angeles party early Sunday.
Well, I think it got very real. The confrontations backstage at award shows and the violence that was being played out in some of the songs. All of a sudden now you have two extremely prominent members of that music culture gunned down, their lives cut short out of nowhere. They're here and gone. Look how quickly guys that are bigger than life can be, have their lives extinguished.
Between 96 and 98, you had other homicides occur with other rappers too, and there were guys who were affiliated with rap music artists that got killed. So the commissioner, he said, Derek, I got to sit down with you and try to pick your brain about why there's so much crime in this community.
Really what we were looking for was, what were the songs saying? What were some of the lyrics saying? It helped to support the motives and the theories that we thought were behind the murders. So you could see the conflict that was existing between these record labels and some of their music.
Today's times, not only has the music changed, but the way to do investigations has changed a lot too.
Back in the 80s and 90s, law enforcement, especially in Los Angeles, we called it proactive policing, but we were very aggressive. We met violence with violence. If you ran from the police, you knew that you were gonna get your ass kicked if you got caught. That was just an understanding that we had. And it was a way that at least we would be attempting to curb gang violence. We've learned in time that it doesn't necessarily work. At the time, we thought that was the right way of doing business. When Tupac and Biggie were murdered, there was such a adversarial relationship between the police and the gang culture. The most prominent theory at the time, publicly, was that corrupt LAPD officers were involved in the murder of Biggie Smalls. And that was what was out, kind of prevailing in the media. and kind of accepted that as being true.
It was like us against them, and everybody was like, well, I'm not talking, I'm not saying what happened. And then the police department had to go out and just find out.
Tupac had this great prison interview. He says, I'm not against the police, I'm just against bad police. And that's a profound statement because we generalize. We think that people from gangs just oppose the police and the police oppose gangs. But when we individualize it and you start to say, hey, these cops are doing a good job and they're trying their best in difficult circumstances. Same thing with these gang members. They've got difficult issues to contend with every day on the streets. And that's how they get to that point in their life. And when you can start to individualize it and respect and appreciate the background of it all, then there doesn't have to be conflict.
Well, for music, I have a legendary band. Well, they're legendary to me, maybe not to most people. They're not that famous, but they are famous in the indie rock world. This band is called Pedro the Lion, and Pedro the Lion is a band that I used to see when I was young in high school or college. I used to go to their shows. They were very well known in the indie rock circuit back then, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. These guys were, they were not famous mainstream, but they were famous in the indie world, and they're called Pedro the Lion. They kind of went away for a long time. Dave Bazan, the lead singer, he had a solo career for a long time, and he's got good stuff too. And then now they're back. They've got a new album, and I'm really excited. It sounds a lot like their old stuff. It's just straight up Seattle indie rock, West Coast indie rock stuff. It's good. I like it. It reminds me of the old days. And this song is called Yellow Bike. And this song, as well as, from what I can tell, a lot of the album is about the old days. He's actually, a lot of the subject material, he's talking about, when he was a kid, when he was a child, and it's about growing up and new life and all of that. And this song is called Yellow Bike. It's a really beautiful song, actually. It's a rock and roll song, but the lyrics, if you look at the lyrics, and if you watch the video that I posted on the blog, it's a good representation. I think he uses his real son in the video. I'm not sure, but it looks like him. But anyway, it's about having, when he was a kid, he had this yellow bike, and he loved to ride his yellow bike because it gave him freedom. He was able to freely roam and go wherever he wanted to go. And then he kind of crosses that into his adulthood as a traveling musician, and about how he's, always still, even now, he doesn't ride his yellow bike, but he's always traveling. He's in a van driving around the country, doing music and that kind of thing. So it's just a cool little song, very kind of a vulnerable song for an indie rock group. So I liked it. I thought it was cool, and I posted it on the blog. Let's listen to it.
On a desert Christmas morning, 1981, 1 month shy of 6 years old, in the valley of the sun, my first two-wheel bicycle stood by the tree, my heart thumping in my chest, though I tried, I couldn't ride one yet. Out on our street, when my dad let go of the seat, I rode off and down the road
Well, that'll do it for entertainment reviews. Let's move on to news slices.
That's God, I don't need y'all. I ain't get your text, you sound like blah blah blah. I don't need the games, I'm finna take the reins. I'ma write up your claims, I'ma forget your name, yeah. That's God, I don't need y'all. That's God, I don't need y'all. That's God, I don't need y'all.
Well, this week for news slices, I found this cool little 5-minute video about this guy. I like these videos. Sometimes they kind of showcase different people around the world who are doing interesting things. This is one of those. This is a guy who lives in, I think, Austria. Actually, I can't remember, but Austria or something. And he's got a kind of an interesting job, and it's a job that he made for himself, and it has to do with building pianos, but not normal pianos. And I like this story because, I don't know, I've always had a kind of a fascination and interest in making instruments. You know, I used to think when I was younger, I thought maybe I someday would make instruments myself, you know, because I just love that craft of making instruments. And then I realized that I don't love it that much. You know, I'm not that much of a craftsman. I'm probably not good at it. You know, but when I was younger, I used to be fascinated by it. I remember there was a guy, my grandfather introduced me. My grandfather had this friend, and he told me about it because I was playing guitar a lot. I was like 19 or 18. And it was kind of an interesting thing because my grandfather, you know, you never hear your grandparents talk about their friends or their personal life, really. You know, it's just kind of, you know, we don't really hear those things from our grandparents. Well, my grandfather one day, I guess because I was playing guitar, and he said, you know, I have this friend. He's a guy, he's a friend of mine, and he builds guitar. He plays guitar and he builds guitars, and you should meet him. You know, and I thought that was, okay, this is strange. My grandfather's never told me, like, you should meet this person before. So I thought, well, maybe I should, you know, I'm going to go meet this guy. So he gave me his address and he gave me his phone number. I called this guy. He was like 85. He was a really old guy. And I went to his house one day. I was like 19. And he said, bring your guitar, come over here. I said, okay. And I went over there and you know, we sat down, we played guitar together, this 85-year-old guy. And I remember he was so cranky. He was so grumpy. Like, he was always yelling at me he kept saying, like, oh, you got a lot to learn, boy. He kept saying that, boy, you got a lot to learn. So he was always, he kept criticizing the way I play guitar, all this stuff, which I thought was funny. He played like a very old style, country style guitar, and he made his guitars. That's what was the cool part for me. He showed me how, you know, he had a little workbench. It's just you know, it wasn't a business or anything. He just did it as a hobby. He made these guitars. And so I always had this kind of fascination and interest in building instruments. I thought it was fun. I thought it was cool. And so that's why I really liked this video when I saw it this week. This guy, he builds pianos, and he decided he didn't want to build pianos like normal people build pianos, you know, because the normal design that we think of, the upright and the grand piano, they've been around for years and years and years, hundreds of years. And so he wanted to try something new. He thought there's got to be another way to build a piano. And so what he did was he started making these vertical pianos. He's got small ones and he's got medium-sized ones and he's got huge ones. One they show in the video. You have to watch the video to really get this. The audio is not going to show you the piano, but if you want to see the piano, go to my blog and watch it because it's cool. He has this warehouse, and in the warehouse, he built this huge piano. It's 15 feet, I think, which is very tall. And he basically has to get up on a platform to play it. And the strings are very long and they go all the way down. And the sound of these pianos is each one has a different sound and a very beautiful sound. It's not very different from a normal piano, but you can hear in the video it's got a unique flavor to it. It's a little cleaner than a normal piano. The big ones have a huge boomy sound. The little one has a very clean, tight sound. And it's just cool. I just thought it was fun because it's cool to have a hobby and then make that hobby into your business. That's cool. And the other thing I liked about it is that he's not afraid to bend rules. You know, there's those people who aren't afraid to bend the rules. And these are inventors, engineers, these kind of people who they look at something and they say, how can we make it better? And they try to make something and people say, hey, you can't do that. That's not how we make pianos. And he said, well, why not? That's the creative engineer. I like those kind of people. They always ask that question, why not? Why not? Let's see what else we can do. Maybe we can change it. Maybe we don't have to do it the same way we've always done it. And then they not just dreaming and coming up with this idea, but they actually follow through. They calculate it out. They build it. To me, that's just amazing. I mean, these are the kind of people that we need more of, these kind of people in the world, because I could never be like that. I wish I could. But they fascinate me. These kind of people who they have these amazing dreams, these amazing visions about something, and then they actually follow through. They calculate it out. They plan it. They map it. They do all the math, whatever they need to do to get it, the measurements just right. And then they get the materials and they put it together and they build it, and it's masterful. It's really beautiful to watch. So you should definitely watch the video. Check out the video on my blog. But let's listen to it right now first.
Welcome to Vas, a small town in Hungary by the river Danube. Wait, where is that sound coming from? Where is it? Where is it? Is it here? Is it here? Okay, getting closer. Wow. That's a tall piano. Steel frames, an aloe vera plant, some tools, and half a piano? Where have we ended up?
Welcome to my workshop.
Oh, and you are?
My name is David Klavins, and I'm a piano builder. During my education, I was told that pianos are made only one way. That's the way you see all over the planet today. And I was very dissatisfied with such an answer, of course. So I began to wonder how the piano could be improved or made different. I wanted to hear the sound which I had in my head. I had an imagination of sound that didn't exist.
By all means, David, show us your pianos.
Okay, come with me. This is one of my pianos, the Una Corda. The small Una Corda is essentially the softest sounding because we have only one string per note.
That's interesting. What do you have next?
This is the concert Una Corda. Concert size Una Corda. It has a fuller sound because it's like 2 meters tall and 2 meters 20 wide. This is my biggest piano, the vertical concert grand of 4 meters 70. In my view, the 470 piano must be vertical and not horizontal in order to emanate the sound directly to the public. People need to hear the best quality sound in concerts, and they have not heard it until now. The concert piano has double strings from the first bass note, which no other piano has. It makes it the fullest sounding piano on the planet.
By my math, at 15 feet, it's the tallest on the planet, too. And how does one start making a piano this tall?
First challenge is to get a place where you can do it, like this one. It is quite an act to get the piano out of the workshop. It is only possible by hiring cranes. Typically it takes like 2 hours only getting through the door. Assembling the piano, again, it's different at every piano because slight differences in dimensions can ask for slight different treatments. And there's a lot of handcrafting involved. Essentially, I love to create new and beautiful music, and building pianos and creating beautiful music is a very important task these days, in particular, to counter the evil on the planet by something very positive.